mean, are you using AI at the moment? It's such a practical tool. How can it work for you?
Well, I've only really started using it quite literally in the last fortnight. I didn't have any idea, to be honest, I know this sounds really ignorant. I think because I'm a very creative founder, I tend to be one of those people who rolls my sleeves up, does a lot of things myself, and is happy to get stuck in. And I honestly didn't realise the extent of which you can ask something to do something for you. And I know this sounds crazy because I'm a Gen Z social media brand. People can't believe it, but I had no idea, and I only really started using it and adding it as an icon on my laptop in the last 2 weeks. So I've dipped my toe in slightly, but nothing crazy. And I actually, nothing crazy. So we haven't utilised it that much as a business yet, but who knows?
Are you seeing some cost benefits already?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are lots of cost benefits to it, of course. And what we've found, one thing that I have found has been really helpful, we're redoing our labels at the moment. And again, something which I never would have thought was even possible. We'll have sort of 4 people proof check the labels. And it's crazy that we'll have 4 sets of eyes, including mine. And then you can run it through AI and it comes back and it's like, you've missed this comma here. Or there's a slight compliance issue here, or there's one S missing from this word. And you just think, wow, how did it...
It can spot a compliance issue.
It spots compliance issues. So that's really what I've been using it for mostly the last couple of weeks.
Because you've asked that in the prompts, is that...
Yeah.
Really?
So they will, at the minute, we're making a few different types of labels. So we need one for the US, one that's EU compliant, one that's globally compliant, specifically for individual retailers. So in these individual retailers or distributors want their own label. And that is just an unimaginable amount of admin work, repetitive. So obviously our graphic designer, we use a graphic designer. I wouldn't know about using AI to actually create the label. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but he creates the label for us and then we proof check it. So my SLT and I will always proof check it and then run it through AI and we'll say, check this for UK compliant, not UK obviously, EU compliance for this retailer, and they'll tell you how to optimize it as well. So they'll say things like, they'll flag possible claim issues. So they'll say, you've written this on the label, make sure you have clinical evidence to substantiate that claim. All of which we do is fine, but it's amazing.
Which tools are you using for that? Is it Anthropic? Is it Google? What?
I was using Claude for that. Yeah, and that's really good. It's more sort of conversational rather than like ChatGPT and stuff.
And you're obviously, a successful young entrepreneur, Gen Z entrepreneur, learning on the job as we all are. But tell me about some of the things you've learned that's kind of changed you as a person and a leader.
Oh my gosh, you know what? I've changed so much in the last 5 years, and I think all of which for the better. I've definitely become a lot more patient because I think the way things are when you're running a business, it requires a lot of patience. Goodness me, what have I learned? What haven't I learned? I think I was so in the trenches right at the beginning. If people don't know the story about hair syrup, it didn't start with, 20 grand and some experience in my back pocket. It literally started, I was hand making hair oils from my parents' conservatory and had, virtually, apart from one person, like no support from the beginning. My parents were just dead against the idea. And it really forced me to get into the nitty-gritty of every single area of the business. So my mum, for example, she's in the business now, but because they didn't agree with me doing it at the beginning, there were a lot of things that my mum's worked in e-com for 20 years, and there were a lot of things that she definitely could have come in and said, no, you're doing that wrong. But obviously because we weren't friends at that time because they didn't agree with me doing hair syrup because it was distracting me from my studies. But I look back and I think that made me such a better entrepreneur because it forced me to learn things about a business that otherwise, if you just hand something off and your dad's an accountant or your dad works in finance, you just say, do this, then that is such a blind spot for you. So it's definitely made me a better entrepreneur. Goodness, so many things I've learned.
With your mum, have you ever had to sort of had a disagreement where you say, look, buck stops with me, it's my business, we're actually going to do it my way, mum?
So this is a common occurrence. We're very different people in business. I am very much an idealist, creative. I'm all about, this is my favourite saying, I say it to all the time. Well, if we can put a man on the moon, we can do this. And she's like, oh God. But my mum is quite risk averse and she's pragmatic, and often there's a clash of heads between I want to do this because I can see the benefit from, I'm much more of a salesy person, I can see the benefit to the brand long term, whereas my mum's like, yeah, but Lucy, if we do that, we'll have to dedicate this amount of resource to it in the short term, but I'm much more of a visionary long term. But she just sees it as, oh my God, if we do that, that's going to muck up our supply chain for the next 3 months. But I see the long-term goal and vision. She sees the short-term irritation and inconvenience.
It's still yin and yang to some extent.
1,000,000%. I always say to everyone, if you're starting a business, I mean, I didn't have a co-founder. Obviously, I'm the only, I'm the sole founder of Hair Syrup, of course. But, I've got my mum, who's my MD, and then I've got my social media manager. They are both absolute, complete opposites, but they fill my cups in different ways. And my social media manager and I are opposites. My mum and I are opposites. And I really think the absolute key way to build a good team, and if you're going to get a co-founder, we're going to introduce someone into the business to fill that co-founder role, you have to make sure that you have a completely different skill set. So I know that sounds really simple, but you're going to have likely, especially if you're related or your partners or it's your partner or your family member, you're going to have conflict because they see the world differently to you. But it took us a few years, but now we see that our differences are actually our superpowers rather than seeing that as a hindrance and an irritation. We see it as superpowers.
I once did an interview with a guy who set up a successful filming sort of ad agency, and he ended up employing his dad. And I remember he said to me in a meeting or something like that, I can't call him dad, so he has to call him his name, Roy. Do you have that if you're with meetings with clients and your mum's there, you can't call her mum?
So I sometimes accidentally slip and call her mum. But what she'll sometimes do is, because you can see our names, and I'm Lucie Macleod, she's Emma Macleod, and sometimes she'll say things like, well, to address the elephant in the room, yes, I am Lucy's mother, just in case anyone's wondering. Although we don't, if you just saw us on a Zoom, like, she's blonde, so we don't really, it's not like we look identical, but yeah, she'll sort of address it. But it is difficult, but I have got firmer in my, I'll say, well, ultimately it is my business. So if I want to do this, this is what we're doing. And you can disagree. However, this is my choice. But I'm not one of those people, because you see it in businesses where people will say they want to do something and then they say, get it done. But the reason why I don't mind being a bit like that is because I am actually the driver and I lead on a lot of projects. So I think, well, I am happy to take the lead with this. I'm not dictating that everyone else, here's my idea, do it. I'm happy to execute it myself. But I think it's such an unnatural thing for her to adapt to having especially when I first started, your young daughter, who she very much still sees as a child, baby, essentially being your boss. It's such an alien dynamic. So it's really, blossomed into an amazing working relationship and has strengthened our interpersonal relationship as well.